Hello, everyone, and welcome to At Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer, and welcome to our guest, Barry Diller, Chairman of IAC. Barry, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
I should say thank you for having us here. We're here at IAC headquarters,
Yes, our nice building.
So I want to start off by talking about IAC, asking you about IAC. It's a portfolio company,
Yes.
and basically you buy businesses, digital media properties, enhance them and monetize them.
Create them.
Or create them. Well, you tell me, how is it working?
Well, it's been working. It's always a process somewhat of renewal because our model, so to speak, if you call it that, is that we build up companies. We're kind of an anti-conglomerate. We build up companies, and when we feel that they've gotten to a stage where they should be independent, we spin them out. We've done it 12 times thus far. So at different cycles of progress, we build up a number of companies, then we push them out, and then we start the cycle all over again. So it's completely renewing, if it renews, meaning if it doesn't in its next cycle. We're right now in the process of building up again after having spun out the last several companies. Vimeo was one, I think Vimeo might have been the last one. Maybe Angie's, now called Angie, which used to be called Angie's List.
And so it sort of expands and contracts over
Yes.
And not due to the economic cycle, but just the cycle of the businesses?
No, it has nothing to do with an economic cycle. It has to do with the cycle of our own of building up a business till we think it should be independent. That's the goal. The goal is not to continue to be a conglomerate, to continue to house these entities. The goal is to get businesses to the point they can be spun off. If actually we keep them too long, basically, although the businesses don't necessarily fail, they just haven't reached the level that they could be standalone public companies. But I would consider those failures.
So you're an allocator of capital. I mean, Warren Buffett allocates capital, Barry Diller allocates capital.
We do that.
But that's what you're doing, Barry, right? You're making
Yes,
investing in these things
Absolutely.
at various points in time. So do you have a central thesis? I mean, it is digital media, but below that there are a lot. I mean, we'll talk about the 5 groups that you're in, but do those theses change over time? Like, I'm interested in family care now.
They change because we're opportunistic. So, and we can move very quickly and tend to move quickly. Once we think something is worthy, we just move and see what the consequences will be. Hopefully help the consequences along, either for good or ill. But it's not some absolute, it's purely opportunistic. And it does not really matter, although digital and internet businesses are kind of our foundation and an area of our expertise. I mean, we bought MGM Resorts because not particularly the digital side that we thought we could help it go online more than it was headed towards, but because I thought, oh my God, in Las Vegas, 42% of every transaction takes place in one of our properties, and there will never, ever be another Las Vegas built anywhere in the world. So I was captured by the infrastructure of this confluence of entertainment and gaming and resorts and all of that in one geographical location that was pretty significant, that this one entity completely dominates.
But you started out as an entertainment executive.
I did.
Right? And so have you thought about the narrative arc of your career and how you started there? And
Sure.
I don't even know how you describe yourself now. I mean, an allocator of capital.
No, not really. That's too grand.
Okay. How would you describe yourself?
Well, since I do a lot of things, I mean, now, IAC is one of our companies, controlled companies. The other is Expedia, which takes a lot of time, which is, as you know, a large travel entity. And then I have like other things. So I don't know what I have no description of me other than I'm still curious.
So let's talk about the public entities, because Barron's, our audience is interested in investing in things. There's IAC, there's Expedia, there's Vimeo. Which other entities are there that are publicly traded? So
there's Match, there's Live Nation, there's, oh God, do I riff these things off? We've spun them out, even though my family probably still holds significant economic interests, I really don't have interest anymore in them, so I kind of forget them.
Then why do you have an economic interest in them still?
Why? It's a really good question. I mean, I don't have an absolute answer other than I tend not to sell things. My life experiences, I don't really do that very much. I'm not about acquiring and disposing. I'm about acquiring and then letting them be as independent as possible. So for our family, I mean, we really only want to invest in liquid securities. We've stopped playing with anything private some time ago.
And is it a way of sort of hedging your bet too? In other words, if you sell half of it or sell 60%, or then you share in the upside, but
Sure.
You've also monetized it.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Right. And then also, if you sell 100%, then you have to. What are you going to do with the money, right?
This is always true.
Right.
I mean, this is a lucky problem.
Right. It's a good problem to have.
But that's okay. My family are spendthrifts.
Well, you spent a lot of money on the island, of Little
We did,
Island.
yeah.
How much
clocking
did you spend on that?
About $300 million.
Oh, that's a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
And you like it? Are you happy with it?
I think it's fantastic. I was there over the weekend, and it makes so many people happy. I mean, it's a park and it's an entertainment platform, so to speak. And it just, when people cross the bridge, our two bridges, to come in or leave, I see them smiling, and that makes me feel great.
Let's go back and talk about some of your companies. IAC, the non-conglomerate conglomerate
Right.
that holds a lot of these. The stock hasn't been doing
No,
so well.
terribly.
Terribly. The stock has been doing terribly. Why has the stock been doing terribly?
Well, as you know, there was this, correction or whatever you want to call it, but all things that were somewhat related to tech got swacked about a year ago, and us along with it. And then we have two large entities inside IAC. One is Dotdash Meredith in the publishing business.
Yeah.
We bought Meredith for about $3 billion a year and a half ago. And as you know, the advertising market has not been exactly robust in the last year. And so that's affected it. But the other thing that affected it is, and we probably underestimated the difficulties at integrating these two entities, Dotdash, which was a company that we owned, a digital publisher, and Meredith, which was primarily a print publisher. And putting them together, I mean, we're now the world's literally largest print and digital publishing company. But it was very messy to put them together. And that took our projections for what we thought, our projections, our fault. But we underestimated the difficulty and overestimated, therefore, the early turn results. So that hurt us. And then Angie, Home Services, was going through a total revolution at exactly that same time. So those two factors, in addition to the tech, kind of thwacked at us. And so now we're in the process, and I think we're making that progress on both entities, of having them come through. But that'll take, well, I think this quarter will be some results, but then in real terms, I would expect the latter half of the year for them to come back. And then if our stock was still down at that point, again, forgetting macro issues, I would be angry.
Okay. What were some of the problems with the integration, Barry? Was it people? Was it systems?
Well, here's what we had to do. We had to take this very old line. I mean, I think Meredith had been in business for 100 and some odd years, based in Des Moines. And we had to take their multi-thousand employees, integrate them into our system. But most importantly, what we wanted to do is take their 60 plus print titles and make them digital friendly, make them sing digitally. And that just simply took longer. It was just hard tech work to do it. At the same time, you're meshing two organizations together. You're doing the kind of synergies that we had outlined to do, which were greater than we thought, but synergies are painful. Cost synergies always have downstream effects on people, on communities, on all sorts of other things.
And two of the publications, for instance, are In Style and People, which come from the old Time Inc., which was bought by Meredith.
Yes.
So those are two pretty big properties.
Lots of Meredith was, Time Inc. was a big acquisition for them. All properties other than Time and Sports Illustrated was a very large acquisition for Meredith that they never really integrated. So by the time we got it, a few years later, it was further having shards banging up against each other. So we had to straighten all that out, and it's been a painful transition. These transitions are always integrations, cost synergies. They're not easy plots. This was more difficult than we thought.
Right. When you go through the process of trying to decide what to invest in or what to spin out,
Yes.
Who are you talking to? I mean, Joey Levin is your CEO, right?
Yes.
You have a board with a lot of interesting
We
people
do.
on it. Chelsea Clinton.
Yes, and
Right.
David Rosenblatt.
Right, David Rosenblatt.
And Michael Eisner.
Right,
who's
Michael
the
Eisner.
Most lively
Oh, Alan
person.
Spoon.
Bonnie
Alan
Hammer.
Spoon.
Alan from the Washington
Right,
Post.
right. Bonnie Hammer.
Yeah,
so talk to us a little bit about the decision making, who you talk to on the board. How
I
did
talked
those
to everybody.
Right.
I tried to. And I certainly, I got my real lessons about how boards should function when I was on the board of the Washington Post, which is absolute and utter transparency. And because, like the Post, we kind of controlled the company, as the Post was a controlled company by the Graham family, which is then you want to have very noisy, obstreperous, opinionated directors, because you do have control. So if you've got control, what do you want? You want the liveliest discussion you can get, with the most opinion, with the most kind of clashing of ideas. And so we've always had that, and that's how we use our board.
Right. What about externally? Who do you talk to? Do you talk to John Malone? You guys used to be.
I talk to John Malone frequently.
Yeah. I mean, he was an investor, but not anymore. You guys are not connected anymore?
My God, when I left Fox to kind of, so to speak, go on my own, John Malone, since 92 or 93, was my partner in all of those enterprises up until we began to spin these companies off. And then we traded Liberty Media and his stock, which his company, Liberty Media, we bought that stock or traded it for something else. And so over the last 5 years, first at IAC and then at Expedia, we exchanged our shares for shares, et cetera, and Malone is no longer a participant. Although he's a participant in my life, I hope.
Right. You and John are similar in that there are a lot of transactions, and I was talking to Greg Maffei, and he was talking about what he was doing, and he works for John, obviously.
Yes.
Is it just, Barry, is it all just too complicated for the ordinary investor to fathom?
Well, I don't think it's hard. I think Liberty's a much, much more complex company than ours, totally different model.
Right, okay.
With our company, I think in it, there are metrics to follow, but also if you either think that the business model we have, which is unique, now it's either unique because no one else wants to do it, or it's unique because no one else can do it. You have to buy into that concept of building up companies and then spinning them off. And if you do, then everything kind of makes sense. Otherwise, you might say, what do I need you to own MGM Resorts for? I can buy that stock separately, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you've got to kind of understand the business model. If you take the business model and you look, and I'm not saying the past is prologue, but if you look at the past, we have been very successful with that particular model over 25 years.
Right. I want to shift gears and ask you a little bit about
Sure.
the threat that Chat GPT and AI pose to owners of intellectual property like
Yes,
yourself. And you sounded off about that. Are you ready to take steps to fight back?
Yes. Well, I don't know really at this point who the fight is against, because I think that the two principal players right now, you have to say, are certainly Microsoft's Bing, powered by OpenAI, and Google's Bard, Google's Google. I'm not so sure they're enemies in this. I think they may be collaborators, but what we've got to do is, before this gets down that track and becomes destructive, we've got to set rules in place and procedures that, in fact, protect the ability of publishers to actually publish, or there'll be no publishing. So I don't want to be in this position of 25 or so years ago when publishing, almost everybody in publishing almost went bankrupt because of the transition to digital and internet and trading dollars for pennies and all of that. It took, as you know, it took 15 years for these companies to say, wait a minute, it is not free. And we'll put paywalls in so we can get subscriber revenue.
Yeah. So are you talking to other executives like yourself?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you're
Quite actively.
Right, and you're not concerned about antitrust or anything like that.
Well, I am, should I say I'm not concerned? I'm admonished by our lawyers to be very careful about how we do that, and we will do it within the context of the existing laws. Some of them we're going to have to get the approval of regulators for us to be able to, we can do it in a trade group, but that can only go so far. It's very possible that publishers are going to have to get together and rewrite that issue on collaboration. The problem is it's the Sherman Act, and the penalties are criminal as well as civil if you violate it.
Can you tell us some of the names of the companies you're talking to?
I don't think it's appropriate.
Can you talk about
One of them owns your company.
Okay, there you go. So it's actual publishers. Is it movie studios as well?
I'm really right now. I'm in the movie. I don't think movies are endangered. Look, everything probably is, but I don't think movies are near term. Publishing's very near term, because if you can, I mean, it will save money on one side, but on the other side, if you can maw up all of the information and be able to use that information to actually forward publish, it makes much of what we all do potentially irrelevant.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
So,
but you're talking to them and you're not sure what to do about it because you're going to knock on Mr. Google's door or Mr. Microsoft's door?
The truth is, we're knocking on each other's doors. I mean, the outreach from them is equal to ours. I mean, for instance, Microsoft doesn't have much to risk because they only have 3% of the search business and very little advertising relatively. Google has a great deal to risk. And so I think they're more collaborators than they would be enemies.
With each other, but are they talking to you, or Microsoft and Google talking to publishers like yourself?
Yes.
Okay, and so that's a positive then, right?
It may be.
Right.
As I started to say, we can't just say stop the train. We have to say, here are solutions to that train going down the track. And that's what we're after. We're after, okay, well, if you're going to do this, how do we coexist? How do we actually be able to keep our advertising revenue moving forward? There is advertising saying, yes, there is. At the same time, be able to get subscriptions. Because unless you've got in most cases, two revenue streams, it's very hard to sustain these publishing entities.
Right, okay. Final question, and shifting gears again, Barry. Presidential election is coming up pretty soon. What are your thoughts on that, and are any candidates attracting your attention right now?
Well, everybody attracts my attention, but not necessarily pleasurably. Listen. I haven't even, to say the least, I've not plunged in. I'm very worried that Trump could be the candidate, much less the potential winner. I think it would be as devastating as what everybody is predicting for the future of mankind with AI. It would be, look, doing it once is an accident. And we lived through that accident without too much damage. But doing it the second time is such a definitional, more than charge. It's it's definitional about this country, and I think that would be horrific. So that's that side. On the Democratic side, I'd like someone who is, let me just say, fresher.
You can be ageist.
I'm entitled.
Right.
Yeah. No, I listen, it isn't really age so much as it's being inside the inside the Democratic Party and its senior operations for 40 years does not create an exactly open, energetic mind.
Fair enough. Barry Diller, Chairman of IAC, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Nice to be with you.
You've been watching at Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer. We'll see you next time.